Good morning, everyone. It is Stocker Feeder Show time. Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? Okay, it's Wednesday.
We'd like to introduce our judge, Bailey Heinrichs. Bailey grew up very active in Adams County for showing cattle and swine. She also showed cattle at the state and national level and was very active in the Junior Charolais Association. Bailey attended college at Nebraska College of Technical Agriculture, where she majored in livestock production and agribusiness. While at NCTA, she was a member of the livestock judging team and was fortunate enough to place in the top 10 at multiple different contests. After college, Bailey returned home to the family farm where she raises corn, soybeans, and wheat. She has continued to expand her registered herd of Charolais cattle and sells bulls and females for seed stock production. Bailey also works as a part-time crop insurance adjuster for Farmers Mutual Hale. She greatly enjoys giving back to the industry that she is passionate about. She hosts livestock clinics on showing and evaluating and serves as the co-advisor of the Nebraska Charolais Association and is the beef superintendent for Adams County. Bailey also really enjoys being able to judge the county fairs and progress shows and being able to work with these great youth. Thank you, Bailey, for being our judge today.
As we get started today, we want to start by thanking our Purple Ribbon sponsors. You'll see them among our other video sponsors scrolling across your screen throughout the day. They include Custer Public Power District, Agri Affiliates, Full Circle Irrigation, Myers Iron Salvage and Roll-Offs, Adams Land and Cattle, Lashley Land and Recreational Brokers, Moline Seed and Fence, Trotter Service and Trotter Fertilizer, The Grocery Cart, Custer County Ag Society, Pearson Physical Therapy, Nebraska State Bank, Healing Hearts and Families, and A1 Auto Repair in Arnold.
As the senior showmen are in the arena, we'd like to thank our banner sponsor, Troy Walls, for his sponsorship this year for the Champion Senior Showmanship Banner. Thank you, Troy.
This is Stocker Feeder Showmanship Senior, our first group of the day. Jalen Young, Brennan Barron, Jack Barron, Caden Goodman, Kate Barron, Mace Barron, and Riley Barron. Champion Senior Showman and Reserve Champion Senior Showman being determined out of this group, as there's just one group. We'll then go on to juniors after that. No pre-junior group in Stocker Feeder this year. Pulled ahead is Brennan Barron. As this is showmanship, there is an interview feature to showmanship, so Bailey is asking a few questions of the kids up there, factoring that into her judging of senior showmanship this morning.
As always, we'd like to thank our Custer County Fair sponsors for 2023. Adams Land and Cattle, LLC, AgWorks Aviation, Acres
Junior Stocker Feeder Showmanship is coming up next. Lillian Van Zant, Titus Van Zant, James Barron, and Trip Oxford all competing in the Junior Stocker Feeder Showmanship category. Bailey's gone through, talked to each of the kids, and we'll go ahead and hear the placement from her. Hopefully she got a good night's sleep. She was busy yesterday. You think we're tired sitting up here behind a camera. She was out there walking around all day, judging, sharp mind, explaining it all to us every step of the way.
A nice way to start off the day today in our senior division of the feeder calf showmanship. All these kids are doing a nice job, kind of like we talked about yesterday. Just some differences in how quickly and efficiently they're getting their animals set up, how well presented they get them, knowing where those feet need to go to get the best angles and the best look for that particular calf. So I think there's a couple that are doing a really nice job. I'll go out and I'll get you a champion reserve, but let's give these kids a big round of applause.
All right, so she'll determine a champion, which will be Jalen Young. And your reserve champion will be that young lady right there. Haven't seen her back tag. We'll hope she kind of turns our direction. Your reserve champion is Kate Barron. So Jalen Young, your champion in senior showmanship. Reserve champion senior showmanship is Kate Barron. We'll now move on to junior stocker feeder showmanship. Lillian Van Zant, Titus Van Zant, James Barron, and Trip Oxford due into the arena. Thank you to Purple Ribbon sponsor Moline Seed and Fence. They serve farmers and ranchers by providing quality products at an affordable price. They're always looking for new products that will benefit farmers and ranchers. Their motto is simple: we operate out of our ranch to save your ranch money. Give them a call at 308-529-0781. Thank you so much to Moline Seed and Fence for being a Purple Ribbon sponsor for our 2023 Custer County Fair coverage. Thank you as well to Lashley Land and Recreational Brokers. They are proud to be serving the Custer County area. Right now, land is moving at a high rate of speed, so if you are considering selling your land, now is the time. Contact John Farley with Lashley Land to find out what your land might be worth. Call 308-530-7854 or check out lashleyland.com. Can you see the staging area over there? Getting ready for stocker feeder showmanship in the junior division. They'll be coming out here shortly. Again, I'm only seeing 3 at the moment. The 4th should show up, hopefully. Two entries making their way in of the 4. That would be James Barron and Trip Oxford.
In Stalker Feeder Showmanship Senior, champion senior showman goes to Jalen Young. Reserve champion senior showman goes to Brennan Barron. Purples go to Kate Barron. Blue goes to Jack Barron, Mace Barron, and Caden Goodman.
Pretty full,
Second call.
pretty full schedule again today.
January 1 to April 30th, Group 1. Second call, Stalker Feeder Steers.
Now the schedule does say FFA Stalker Feeder Show followed by 4-H Stalker Feeder Show, but we are obviously seeing 4-H kids out there right now in their green shirts.
Group 2.
So I would venture to guess that the FFA Stalker Feeder Show will follow. 9 o'clock this morning, 4-H breeding heifers, followed by the Clover Kid Bucket Calf Parade, Junior Herd, and Best Group of 3 beef. At 11 o'clock, the 4-H and FFA Beef Fitting and Showing Contest. 4-H Dairy Cattle Show is at 1, and the 4-H Goat Show is followed by the FFA Goat Show, also at 1 o'clock. FFA Dairy Cattle will round out our day at 3 o'clock. So we'll kind of see how they switch up the order on those several things that I read, as we were supposed to start with FFA Stalker Feeders, but are starting with 4-H Stalker Feeders instead. We'll kind of see how things roll out. Very busy day yesterday. Yesterday was all about beef. That obviously keeps everybody super busy and draws a huge crowd. Many of those kids competing here in Stalker Feeders this morning as well. Judges down here just off of your screen. Interviewing Trip Oxford. And we'll hear which of these 2 young men is the champion and which is the reserve champion.
Your showmanship contest. I think both these young guys are doing a nice job. Maybe one that just is a little more attentive in terms of where he's at in the ring and getting that animal stuck really well. The young man with the shorthorn heifer will be your champion. So congratulations to both of you. Let's give them a round of applause.
So your champion is Trip Oxford. James Barron is your reserve champion, junior showman. Group 1 of Stocker Feeder Steers, January 1st through April 30th, coming up next from Jalen Young, Lillian Van Zant, Brennan Barron, James Barron, Reagan Fleece, and Riley Barron. We will have 2 groups there, and then we'll have the best from each of those groups come in to determine a champion and reserve champion.
In Stocker Feeder Showmanship Junior, champion junior showman goes to Trip Oxford. Reserve champion junior showman goes to James Barron. Second call, Stocker Feeder Steers, January 1st to April 30th, Group 2. Second call, Stocker Feeder Steers, January 1st to April 30th, Group 2.
Again, this right here is Group 1 in front of you. Jalen Young, Lillian Van Zant, Brennan Barron, James Barron, Reagan Fleece, Riley Barron in this group. We'll have one other group before we determine the champion and reserve champion. We'll have 2 groups of Stocker Feeder heifers and then the best 3 Stocker Feeders, and that will round out the entirety of the Stocker Feeder show this morning.
top pair especially. The young lady's red steer is going to win the class, and I think just when you study them in terms of at the ground, this one does have the most amount of foot and bone underneath him. He's pretty good in his angles. I think maybe one that's obviously a little bit more green, a little gained up this morning, but when you really start to study him in true shape across the top side of the skeleton, I think he is the most shapely and the most expressive, and he is the stoutest pinned one out here. So as you kind of project him and feed him out, I think this one's going to be a pretty cool steer next summer to look at. Young lady's black steer that comes next, he is the bigger ribbed, kind of deeper bodied type of steer. He's a little bit more moderate in his frame size, maybe just not quite as wide pinned, a little bit more refined in terms of his bone work, but certainly a really nice kind of soft made, easy feeding type appearing steer there in second. The young man's black steer that's going to be third, one that's got some length of spine. He gets out and goes relatively well. He's got a little bit of shape. He's maybe just not quite as stout and powerful as those two ahead of him. Doesn't have quite as much of a look to him. Gets a little bit plainer through that 1/3, but a really nice steer there in third as well. The kind of blue roan steer that's going to come fourth, I think one that in terms of just kind of a show ring presence, he is one that's really attractive up through that front 1/3. He blends really smoothly into his head, neck, and shoulder and gives you a pretty decent look. He's got some depth of body. He's maybe just a little bit flatter muscle type of steer, not quite as wide when you step in right behind him, but a really nice class of stalker feeder steers here.
Okay, so first place in that group was Jalen Young. Second place was Reagan Fleece. I believe both of them will be back to compete for champion and reserve champion stalker feeder steer. So that means group number 2 of stalker feeder steers is heading out here very soon. Here comes group number 2, Jalen Young with another entry. Titus Van Zandt, Caden Goodman, Cade Barron, and Mace Barron all listed in our program. And looks like we'll have 4 of the 5 enter the show ring.
Second call, Stalker Feeder Heifers, January 1 to April 30th, Group 1. Second call, Stalker Feeder Heifers, Jan 1 to April 30th, Group 1. First call, Stalker Feeder Heifers, Jan 1 to April 30th, Group 2. First call, Stalker Feeder Heifers, Jan 1 to April 30th, Group 2.
Looks like Mace Barron going to come in second if they're putting them in order, and Jalen Young will again take first. So Jalen first in the first two groups herself.
A nice class of feeder steers here. The young lady's black steer is going to win this class, and he does so pretty easily in my mind. I think this is one that just combines a lot of good to him. He certainly gets out and goes when you set him into motion. He's good in terms of when you study him at the ground. He's got a good set to his hock. I think he's soft in his pasterns, and he's got some decent foot and bone underneath him. And you kind of get him on the profile, he gives you a really nice look. I think he's one that's pretty neatly designed up through that front 1/3. He's big and stout from hooks to pins. You step in behind this one, and he reads with plenty of power and dimension. So just a really nice steer to start the class. Maybe gets a little bit closer, but I think that blue roan steer kind of follows our class winner a little bit more in terms of type and kind. I think he's just a little bit stouter, especially when you study him in a foot and bone circumference. I think he's just a little bit bigger legged. I think he's certainly one that's got some depth of body, and as you kind of project him into a fat steer phase of their life, I think he's one that's going to feed nice and still kind of give you some added show ring type of look to him. The young lady steer that's third is one that's really blends nicely into his shoulder. I think he's probably one of the tightest neck steers out here, but with that, he's maybe a little bit flatter in terms of muscle shape when you compare him right to the two that come up ahead of him. Certainly one that gets out and moves extremely well, a really athletically built type of steer, a nice steer there for her. The young man that's going to come next, one of the deepest bodied, boldest rib steers of the class, he maybe just doesn't balance up quite as well as those steers ahead of him, isn't quite as smooth in terms of a design standpoint, but one that's certainly going to feed out well and be a nice steer for him next year.
In Group 2 of Stalker Feeder Steers, purples went to Jalen Young and Mace Barron. Blues went to Kate Barron and Caden Goodman.
Okay, so first place in both groups went to Jalen Young. Second place went to Reagan Fleece and Mace Barron. I believe they'll bring in those four steers to compete for the champion and reserve champion stalker feeder. So Jalen gonna have to get some help, I believe. That same steer in there, not cooperating at all off screen, doing some jumps and spins, and I think they're just going to skip on entering the show ring. Judge is saying, you know, if you can bring it in just a little bit, that'd be okay.
As our purple stalker feeder steers re-enter the arena, we'd like to thank our band sponsors.
Be just off the screen. They can't get it to go into the show ring at all. There's 3 people working on it, and they just can't get it accomplished. So that's very unfortunate, but not going to be able to see Reagan Fleece. Well, I can't remember whose stalker feeder that was. The young man carrying it. It's not the one that was going out with it before. I think that might be Jalen's other stalker feeder. You see it right there on the right-hand part of your screen. Just deciding to take a little rest. Yeah, that is her other one.
Back out here. I think 4 really nice calves, maybe a little bit more challenging to get a good look at, but I think when you study that red steer just in terms of foot and bone, he is a really big-footed type of steer. He's really big from hooks to pins, and he's really impressively shaped when you step in behind him. Maybe not one that's wanting to present himself real well today, but I think when you study fundamentals of cattle, this one offers a lot of good pieces. He's maybe a little more green, a little ganned up this morning, but I think one as you project into a fat steer, he's going to be an awfully nice steer. the black steer that wins the second class. I think one that's really complete steer. He's sound, he's functional, and he's kind of got some added look to him as well. He's pretty shapely across the top side. He's soft-centered. Certainly one that's going to feed out and kind of give you that show ring type of look. The young lady's black steer that was second in the first class, one that does have a lot of rib shape. He's really deep-bodied and really soft-made. He's just a little bit shorter-sided, a little bit more moderate in terms of frame size. Maybe one that's not just going to be huge by any means, but a pretty nice steer there in that second hole. The young man's kind of blue roan steer that came out of the second class, a pretty practical type of steer. He's got some length of spine, he's got some good circumference of foot and bone underneath him. He's maybe not just the most attractive steer out here in the drive, but I think one that's going to feed well and be a pretty functional type of steer. So I guess there's a couple for me that I've liked quite a while. The young lady's black steer out in the second class is going to be your champion, and the red steer over here in the corner is going to be reserve.
Okay, so as we indicated, good thing they got that red steer in, because Jalen Young, because of that, is able to capture champion and reserve champion in stocker feeder steer. Certainly future is bright in showing those two steers in the future for her. And they're just going to bring that red steer out the other door. You're not even going to see it leave. It's going to take 4 guys again to get it to move anywhere. Jalen certainly has her work cut out and working with that steer to get it to show. So again, Jalen Young is your champion in stocker feeder steer division and your reserve champion.
Champion stocker feeder steer goes to Jalen Young. Reserve champion stocker feeder steer goes to Jalen Young.
That brings us to stocker feeder heifers, group number 1. Heading in right now includes Brennan Barron, Kate Barron, Riley Barron, and Trip Oxford. Want to thank Adams Land and Cattle for being a Purple Ribbon sponsor of our coverage. From the feedlot to developing the industry's next major innovation, they are always looking for talented people and productive partnerships. Check out their website at adamslandandcattle.com for career opportunities. Thank you so much, Adams Land and Cattle, for being a Purple Ribbon sponsor this year. Thank you as well to Myers Iron and Salvage. They can do it all. They offer optional roll-off containers and rural metal cleanup by bid process. They're open 6 days a week. Call Iron Man Rod at 880-0309 or check out their website at myersironsalvage.com to learn more. And we will hear from the judge.
A nice class of feeder heifers out here. Young man Shorthorn heifer is going to win the class. I think she does so pretty easily. I think this one just combines the most amount of good. She's a pretty practical type of female. She gets out and goes pretty well. I think she's one that's pretty smooth-shouldered and gives you a nice look from the side. She's maybe not just the deepest rib, but I think that's certainly going to come with some time. She is one of the bigger framed heifers, but I think when you just step in behind them, she gives you plenty of width and dimension, and she just kind of has that kind of breeding female type of look to her, so a nice heifer to win the class. The young lady's heifer that's going to come second, I think one that's got some length of spine. She gets out and goes relatively well. She's pretty soft made through the center portion of her body, maybe just doesn't balance up and isn't quite as smooth as the one that's going to win the class, but a nice heifer for her there in the second hole. The young man's heifer that's going to be third, I think one that does have some natural muscle shape and dimension. She's just a lot more plain in her design. I think she's one that's just a little bit heavier up through that front 1/3, maybe gets a little bit looser naveled there, just doesn't balance up quite as well, but one that's certainly going to come out and feed. So a nice trio of feeder heifers out here.
Off screen, while we were doing all that talking, there was another stalker feeder kind of losing its mind in the back.
Feeder heifers. Purple goes to Trip Oxford. Blues go to Kate Barron and Brennan Barron.
So that'll bring in group number 2. They'll be coming in here shortly. Jalen Young, Jack Barron, Mace Barron, and Regan Fleece all competing in Group 2 of Stalker Feeder Heifers, January 1st to April 30th, 2023. Best 3 Stalker Feeders is going to be our last event here in the Stalker Feeder Show for this year. Competing in best 3 stalker feeders later is Jalen Young, Jack Barron, Kate Barron, and Riley Barron. Here comes group 2 of the stalker feeder heifers onto your screen now. Jack Barron there first, Jalen Young coming in second, and then Regan Fleece coming in third. Announcement being made here saying that the breeding heifer show will start immediately following the best 3 stalker feeders show, which of course is coming up next. Pulled up first will be Jack Barron.
Second call.
Regan Fleece pulled up second.
Second call. Best 3 stalker feeder.
And that leaves Jalen Young, who will get first in the group.
Feeder heifers out here. The young lady's black heifer that's going to win the class. I think one that has a lot of length of body. She's maybe a little bit bigger frame type of female. She's certainly one that reads with more overall foot and bone. She's just a little bit stouter in terms of width and dimension in comparison to the 2 that are below her. I think one that you would like to kind of soften her up and kind of drop her down in terms of depth of body, but hopefully one that with some age that'll kind of come on and add on to her. The young lady's heifer that's going to come next, a little bit more moderate type frame female. She is one that's a little bit softer through the center third of her body. I think she gives you a pretty decent look from the side. She's maybe just not quite as stout and expressively muscled as that one that's going to win the class, but an awfully nice heifer there in second. The young man's heifer that rounds out the class, I think one that is a pretty nice heifer. She's got some rib shape and dimension to her. She's maybe just not the stoutest featured heifer out here. Gets a little bit overpowered, just gets a little bit more plain when you compare it to the two that stand up ahead of her. But three really nice heifers out here in this class of feeder calves.
So now we'll bring in the tops from Group 1 and Group 2 to determine a champion and reserve champion stocker feeder heifer.
In Group 2 stocker feeder heifers, purples went to Jalen Young and Riggin Fleece. Blue went to Jack Barron. First call, Black Angus heifers, yearling heifers, calf Jan 1, 2022 to April 30th, 2022.
Trip Oxford entering first. He was first in that first group of stocker feeder heifers. Then Jalen Young, first out of that second group. And also coming in, the other purple ribbon recipient would be Riggin Fleece out of that second group. So three competing for champion and reserve champion in stocker feeder heifer.
For your champion feeder heifer lineup, the young man, shorthorn heifer from that first class. I think one that's got some length of spine. She's one that's pretty good-footed. She gets out and goes pretty well. She's more, she has a little more curvature to the upper portion of her rib than maybe that black heifer that stands right behind her, but one that gives you a really nice look, and I think she's going to be a really fun one to watch and grow throughout the next year. The young lady's black heifer, I think, is the more shapely and muscled up heifer of the class. I think she is the stoutest featured, but with that, she's maybe not just the softest through the center portion of her body. Maybe pinches a little bit in her forerib and her flank there, but certainly one that gives you a pretty nice look from the side as well. The young lady's heifer that was second in that last class, a really functional type of female. I think she is one that's a little bit deeper sided than the heifer that stands right in front of her. Maybe one that's just a tick more moderate in terms of her overall frame size, but three really nice heifers. Young man shorthorn heifer from the first class will be your champion feeder heifer, and the black heifer that won the second class will be your reserve.
So Trip Oxford with the champion stocker feeder heifer. Jalen Young will be the reserve champion stocker feeder heifer. That will move us on to best three stocker feeders. We've seen them gathering in the back throughout the morning while this other competition is happening. Competing, Jalen Young, Jack Barron, Kate Barron, and Riley Barron. So we'll see 12 stocker feeders out there. if we have everyone come in. So it looks like they might be doing that judging back in the area that you are watching because of those calves that were not wanting to participate earlier. So I'll try to get a camera over there here shortly. But that is in the area that you're looking at right there.
The judge is looking at our best three-stalker feeders behind the arena. We'd like to thank McFate Ranch for sponsoring the banner champion best three-stalker feeders.
Turn a camera over there so we can maybe zoom in and see the judge. Kind of tough to see over there. But it was nearly impossible to get a couple of those, especially that one red calf to participate earlier. Couldn't even hardly get it into the show ring earlier. And then there was another one that was even more angry that you folks didn't see when competition was going on here in the ring. Was kind of freaking out even more. So they're just going to do it back on the other side. And we will hear the announcement on who's who as far as who receives what ribbon. Looks like the purple ribbon and your champion is going to be going to Jalen Young. I just saw that ribbon handed off. Here's that group.
Champion, best of three stalker feeders, goes to Jalen Young. Reserve champion, best of three stalker feeders, goes to Kate Barron. As we prepare for the breeding heifer stand of the arena, we'd like to thank more of our 2023 Custer County Fair sponsors. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so as you heard there, Jalen Young is your champion in best of three stalker feeders. And Kate Barron is your reserve champion. Up next, the breeding heifer show. That is right around the corner. We'll step away for a moment and come back with that.
Second call, Charlie yearling heifers, have January 1st to April 30th, 2022. Second call, Charlie yearling heifers, have January 1st to April 30th, 2022. First call, commercial heifers, Group 1, yearling heifers, have Jan 1 to April 30th, 2022. First call, commercial heifers, Group 1, yearling heifers.
Here we have group number, well, the only group of Black Angus heifers. These are yearling heifers calved January 1st to April 30th, 2022. 6 names listed in the program, and there are 6 animals out there. Mesa Jones, Callie Nelson, Casey Nelson, Braxton Reinierson, and Brecken Reinierson, as well as Heston Scott. All out there competing.
Just a reminder to all market livestock exhibitors, if you are planning to sell your animals through the 4-H FFA livestock auction or putting animals on base bid, you need to sign those animals up. We have QR codes for you to do that with, and you can find the QR codes in your premium book or in the livestock office. So be sure to sign up your market animals for the livestock auction and base bid.
Again, this is Black Angus heifers, yearling heifers, calved January 1st through April 30th. Mesa Jones, Callie Nelson, Casey Nelson, Braxton and Brecken Reinierson, and Heston Scott all out there competing. Close competition. The judge is having them do another kind of circle around. Still out there competing, Callie Nelson, Casey Nelson, as well as Braxton Reinierson. Brecken, Heston, and Mesa have all been pulled aside already. Casey Nelson going to come in third. Now to just choose a champion and a reserve champion. And it looks like Braxton Reinierson is going to come in first. Callie Nelson in second. We'll hear from the judge on what she saw. Right there, Callie on the left-hand side of your screen, Braxton on the right.
really nice class of Angus heifers. Definitely just some differences in terms of where they're at in their maturity, their condition-wise, age, just a little bit of difference in type and kind as well. The young man's heifer that's going to win the class, I think, really kind of does so when you set him back out into motion. This one gets out and moves really, really well. She really readily fills her tracks. I think she's one that's really fresh in her condition. She's pretty when you get her on the profile. She's maybe not the most overwhelming in terms of how much center body she's got. I think a lot of these other heifers have more, but I do think she is the freshest. She is the most functional when you set her into motion. The young lady's heifer that comes second, the one that I think just gives you a really kind of brood cow type of look. She's really robust and capacious through the center third of her body. She's got a ton of depth of body to her. She's really attractive. Maybe doesn't get out and move quite as well as that one that wins the class, but certainly one that's got plenty of power and dimension. The young lady's heifer that comes third, one that I think when she gets her stopped, this one gives you about as good of a look as any. She's really smooth. I think she's pretty fresh. She's just a little bit straighter in the angle to her hock. Maybe doesn't get out and reach quite as well off of either end as those heifers ahead of her, but certainly one that's got some depth of body and some power as well. The fourth place heifer, I think one that maybe is just a little bit different than the other heifers out here. She is the bolder sprung, the wider made type of female. I think she is the most powerfully constructed heifer of this class. She's got some depth of body, but with that, I think she is one that maybe gets up in her tail head. I'd just like to level her out right there a little bit and give her a little bit more of a smooth, kind of well-balanced type of look, but certainly high-quality heifer there. Young man's heifer that comes fifth, the long-sided heifer. She gets out and moves. She's just maybe a little bit more flat in terms of muscle shape, maybe wants to kind of not blend quite as well from hooks to pins as a couple others, but a nice heifer there as well. And then the heifer that rounds out the class, the kind of short switched heifer there, I think one that really gives you some kind of nice cowy look to her. She's certainly one that's going to make a nice brood cow. She's got some depth of body. She is one of the longer spined heifers. She gets out and goes. She just maybe gets a little bit flatter in terms of muscle, especially when you step in behind her. She is one of the narrowest hipped heifers of this class, but a really nice class of Angus heifers. Let's give them a round of applause.
Okay, so in Black Angus heifers, Braxton Reinierson is your champion. And your reserve champion is Callie Nelson. That brings in a single entry. You see on your screen now in Charlet yearling heifers, calf January 1st through April 30th. Paisley Seta is showing this yearling heifer. Judge will take a look over it and talk to us about it.
First call, commercial heifers, yearling heifers, group 2.
Just a single entry here in the Charlet division, but a pretty nice heifer. I think one that's really fresh in terms of where she's at condition-wise. She's got some width and dimension to her. She's pretty soft-centered. You know, if you're going to change her, maybe give her just a touch more length, the spine a little more extension up through that front end, and kind of clean her up just a notch through that front 1/3, but a pretty nice heifer here. Let's give her a round of applause. She'll be your champion Charlet heifer.
Champion Charlet heifer goes to Paisley Seta.
That brings us into commercial heifers. Group number 1 includes Miles Babcock, Rayleigh Bachman, Clayton Barker, Riley Barron, Weston Delaney, and Tripp Oxford. Looking ahead, Group 2 will be Mace Barron, William Delaney, Caden Goodman, Paisley Sena, Addison Stump, and Jalen Young. And that will be it for that group. Now there's just 2 groups of yearling heifers calved January 1st through April 30th. But there is one commercial heifer that was calved May 1st through August 31st. Hallie Meyer will be showing that one. That'll be a single entry, but as I'm reading here in the program, it looks like it will compete against the top commercial heifers from Group 1 and Group 2 to determine a champion commercial heifer. So again, here comes group number 1. Trip Oxford first into the arena, then Weston Delaney coming onto your screen right now. Coming in third and across was Rayleigh Bachman. Then Miles Babcock, Riley Barron, and Clayton Barker. All coming in and getting settled in along the top part of the show ring.
Second call, commercial heifers, yearling heifers, Group 2. First call, commercial heifers, calved May 1st through August 31st, 2022.
Pretty good crowd on hand again here up in the stands watching the breeding heifer show. Out across the way, they are doing the bucket calf interviews. The 4-H Clover Kids bucket calf interview judging started at 9 o'clock this morning. Not that long ago. The Clover Kid bucket calf parade will follow the breeding heifer show, which we are in the middle of right now at this moment. Then after the bucket calf parade will be junior herd and best group of 3 beef. They allow those kids some time during the bucket calf parade to gather up what they need for the junior herd and best group of 3 beef shows. Then at 11 o'clock, one of my favorite events, the 4-H FFA beef fitting and showing contest. That'll take place at 11 o'clock. Later on today at 1 o'clock, the 4-H dairy cattle show at the same time as the 4-H goat show. That is followed by the FFA goat show and FFA dairy cattle to round out the day. Normally, in years past, that would be the end of our video streaming offering, but we are offering 4 days of video streaming this year. We will stream the very last event of the Custer County Fair 2023 this year. That is, of course, the livestock auction. Make sure you tune in for that. If you aren't able to tune in for a video stream of it, we will, of course, broadcast it again on KCNI Pure Country for you. Thank you to Full Circle Irrigation with locations in Broken Bow and Litchfield. Contact Todd Wardine at their office in Litchfield or Broken Bow for all of your irrigation parts, technology, and service needs. They are proud to be your local Valley dealer. That is Full Circle Irrigation of Broken Bow and Litchfield, a purple ribbon sponsor for our 2023 Custer County Fair coverage. Appreciate it, Todd and crew. Again, you're looking at group number 1 of commercial heifers. The yearling heifers calved January 1st to April 30th, 2022. Trip Oxford, Miles Babcock, Riley Barron, all still down there along the bottom side, as is Clayton Barker. The other 2 competitors have been pulled up to the top already. and it looks like Miles Babcock is going to come out on top in this first group of commercial heifers. We'll hear what the judge has to say.
An interesting class as we get into the first class of the commercial heifers. The young man's heifer that's going to win the class, she is the biggest rib, deepest bodied heifer. Honestly, for my taste, she's maybe a tick moderate. I would like to give her a little bit more added frame, but I think when it comes down to it, she is one of the boldest sprung heifers, one that gets out and goes relatively well. I think she's one that ties pretty nicely into that front 1/3. Maybe one that when you kind of get her on the walk and get her on the profile, maybe a little extra full, kind of gives the illusion that she kind of roaches up in her loin a little bit, but still one that has plenty of shape and dimension. Nice way to start the class. Young lady's heifer that's going to come second, I think one that is quite a bit more plain in terms of her design. She's a little bit heavier up through that front 1/3, but certainly one that reads with some natural muscle shape and dimension. I think she's one that could definitely create some powerful bulls or some nice steer calves on down the road. I'd just like to see her just softened up a little bit, but a nice heifer there. Young man's kind of colorful heifer here that's going to be third. One that I do like in terms of I think she's got some added look and eye appeal. She maybe doesn't get out and move quite as well as those two standing up ahead of her. I would just like to give her just a tick more frame to her as well, but a nice heifer there in third. The young man's heifer that comes fourth, I think one that does have that added kind of femininity when you look at her from the side. She's really good about the crest of her neck. She's got a nice cowy head on her. She's maybe not as deep bodied, but I think when you set her into motion, she's one that gets a little bit more upright in the angle to her pasture, and I'd just like to soften her up at the ground. The black heifer that's going to come next, certainly one that's just going to go out and make a nice commercial cow. She's got some rib shape, she's got some depth of body, just not the most stout prospect out in here. The red heifer that winds out the class, one that has a really athletic stride. She reaches really well off of both ends, got some length of body, just a little bit more green in her condition, just gets a little bit outpowered by the ones ahead of her.
So again, first in that group is Miles Babcock. We will hear the announcement of the purple ribbons from the announcer here soon as we prepare for group number 2, which will come onto your screen here shortly. Mace Barron, William Delaney, Caden Goodman, Paisley Setta, Addison Stump, and Jalen Young all coming in very soon.
In Group 1 of commercial heifers, purples go to Miles Babcock, Riley Barron, and Trip Oxford. Blues go to Clayton Barker, Weston Delaney, and Rayleigh Bachman.
Caden Goodman, first one in. Mace Barron next across your screen. Not that young man. There he is. Jalen Young will come in next, representing Middle Loop 4-H. William Delaney on your screen there in the middle. And then coming in last is Addison Stump. And Paisley Seta coming in here shortly as well.